to jump in and you're under the ice, you're watching your bubbles dance on the ceiling and just all these designs through the ice. It is kind of funny because we'll do our ice diving in freshwater, and the freshwater is actually warmer than the ocean. So sometimes our ice dives in the winter are warmer dives.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. An episode full of laughs as I speak with April Weickert. The level of excitement she has for scuba diving is contagious. Scuba being the family business, it was only a matter of time before she would find herself taking breaths underwater. She tells me more about Torpedo Rays Scuba, based within Nova Scotia, cold water diving, the local diving community, podcasting, Jump In, the series, and much more. Please enjoy. The weather is very nice in Malaysia, I'm not gonna lie.
What's it like there right now?
Well, it's always usually warm, so I'm slowly converting over to Celsius. But generally it's like 28, 30 Celsius. So it's always really warm. It's always really nice. I absolutely love it. I am not a big cold weather person. So I used to be a lot more, and then I feel like as I've gotten older, the warm weather just kind of suits me a little bit.
I feel that. Does anyone really like cold weather? I don't think so. I think some people tolerate it.
It had its moments. But April, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great this morning. It's morning for me, and I think it's nighttime for you, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It's in the wee hours of the night, but it's Friday night, so I can my bedtime gets pushed out a little bit on Friday night, so it's not too bad.
Well, that's good. How's the future? You're living in the future. For me, it's Friday morning.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. I had a good Friday, and Fridays are always nice, so it's definitely not bad sitting here in the future. I think it's a little bit more when it's like New Year's Eve, and then I could be like, oh, you're in last year, like
last year.
So last. But no, I welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you on. I have tons of questions. So I don't know, it's south from you, but I actually grew up in New Hampshire. So
not too far.
So northeast kid. I never did any diving there, but there's definitely some places that I want to go diving there. So I'm really curious and excited to hear more about the diving in your area. But my first question I want to ask you is, tell me how and why you got into scuba diving. Tell me about that first breath. What led to that moment? Was it love at first breath? Was it, I hate this, I'm never doing this again? Tell me all about it.
Yeah. So, I have a bit of an interesting story in scuba. I was kind of born into it. So I grew up with my parents running a dive shop here in Nova Scotia. So I think maybe I had no choice to get into it. However, I do have two sisters who don't really dive. So maybe I was the chosen one. But my father was trying so hard my whole kind of childhood to get me into scuba. And honestly, I didn't have a huge interest in it. I grew up on the ocean. And I think as East Coast kids, we're raised to fear the ocean a little bit because everyone's parents are terrified of us drowning and the cold water. So I definitely loved the ocean and had respect for it. But I also had a little bit of fear towards it. So I was always scared of like drowning and getting trapped in the waves, these kind of things. So at 12, my dad, who's also an instructor, tried to teach me to dive. I wanted nothing to do with it. After our first pool session, I said I will not be back. 2 years later, at 14, he took me back in the pool. And much of the same, I was like, yeah, no, I still don't like this. And then finally, I was 17 and I was just about to graduate high school. I played sports all through high school and I thought, okay, I need something to keep me active. And I went back to the pool. To be honest, still hated it, but at this point was committed. And I was like, I just got to push through, finish this, finish the confined water. So we get through confined water and I get to the ocean for the first time. It was, I think, August in Nova Scotia, which is warm to us. It's about like 18 degrees. And I saw lobster. And I was like, this is incredible. So I kind of had this moment of I love diving because I love to see what's down there, but I hate skills. And so from there, I kept diving because I wanted to see lobster and I wanted to see fish and all this. And eventually, kind of the comfort and the skills came. But kind of my initial hatred came from a place of being so incredibly uncomfortable.
Okay, okay, wow. No, that's no, I love hearing people's first or the journey into it because it's always so different and oddly enough, I feel like you do hear that like quite a bit like people they don't really like it and then there's like a pivotal moment where it just hits and
Yeah.
then they love it. So, I'm actually curious cuz I did my open water in Texas and obviously it's pretty warm. It was in the middle of the winter and we did use wetsuits. Were you in a wetsuit or being just the temperature up there, is it like right into a dry suit?
So I learned in a wetsuit at 18 for us. I mean, that's pretty nice. That's like, I don't know, that's balmy. But I did quickly convert to dry suit. So I did my open water dives, and I think dive 5 for me was a dry suit dive. So very quickly after I finished my open water, I got into dry suit diving. But I will say now, like years in, I still like diving in my wetsuit here in the summer. So when it does warm up a little bit, it feels nice to get wet.
Okay, okay. What is the water temperatures like on
Oh,
average?
yeah. So we vary like crazy. So right now, January, I just got back from a trip, but I'm supposed to be diving tomorrow. And I asked my friends, and it's about 0 right now. The coldest I've dove here is -2 Celsius. And the
Oh.
ocean is actually getting icy at that point. I have like a photo on my Instagram, and I'm just like laying in a puddle of ice going for a dive. But on the flip side, in the summers, it can actually get really nice, like low 20s, kind of
Oh.
in our shallows until you hit the thermocline. So, I mean, for me, that's 5 mil weather. So it is crazy. We're going from like ice diving to 5 mil diving, and you take what you can get, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Oh, that's awesome. So after your open water, you loved it. Was it just like, what's the next course, or was it like, how did you slowly progress from there, or was it like a fast progression?
Yeah, I don't think I had a super fast progression, but I did start diving my heart out as soon as I got my open water course. So, kind of funny, but I worked in the dive shop before I was even certified. I think where it's the family business, it's, you are a slave to your parents. And they had me in here, sweeping the floors, putting away rental gear. So then once I got certified, like all the other staff in the shop were so excited. Like April's finally certified. She's only worked here for like 5 years and doesn't know how to dive. So everybody really quickly like took me under their wing and made me dive and took me out diving and made it really fun. So I went into my advanced open water pretty quick. And honestly, part of that was I was just diving with instructors all the time because I was diving with the staff. So we kind of slowly picked away at my advanced. And then I would say a year later, I did my rescue and then went on to my dive master. And then in 2019, did my IDC.
Oh, okay, okay. And was that up in your area, like the
I
IDC
did.
IE?
Yeah. So I did my IDC and my IE in Coldwater, Nova Scotia.
Okay, okay. So I'm going diving in Nova Scotia. What are some things that I will see in the water there?
Yeah, so it totally depends on the time of year you come out, which is kind of the coolest part is there's always a season for something. If you are really into aquatic life, I would say like August, maybe July through to October, you can go diving and you just see hundreds of cunner. And I don't know if you know what cunner are, but they are my favorite fish ever. And they're the most plain fish, but they have so much personality. They're just the best. They're like little brownie orange fish. Like, this is a podcast, but if you could see my hands, you would see that they're like maybe 5 inches long. And they're just so funny. They come in schools. They have like little chompy teeth on them, and they like show them to you. You ever see those memes of cats and it's like teeths? That's like what cunner remind me of. So, but they're so funny and they're so curious. So you're just in this school of cunner and they're pulling on your hair, they're biting your mask, like different things like that. So they're pretty cool. But no one else gets as excited about cunner as me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm overselling cunner, but I love them. You'll also see, of course, lobster. I would say that's what we're most famous for. We've got ginormous lobsters, some that I swear are 4 feet long, like just massive lobster. So people are super excited to come out. We had a dive last year. We saw over 100 on a dive. So literally we're just littered with lobster. We have sea ravens and sculpins. We've got seals. We've got mola mola. We've got... I don't know. We've got all kinds of stuff. Nudibranchs, which everybody loves nudibranchs. Who doesn't love a nudie?
That is true. That is very, very true. I remember the first time I started kind of coming across and hearing about them. I was on a trip to Indonesia, and you just start hearing about them. Like, what's all the hype about it? And then it's just, they're so fun to like search for and like find, and then you find different ones. It really is a nudie world out there.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, I'm the kind of person, I love instant satisfaction. And I think that's why when I go diving, I'm always looking for the big stuff, because it's just like, there it is, like instant satisfaction. But some of my friends who refer to themselves as the nudie girls, which for non-divers is a bit of a misleading title. But anyhow, they got me into nudie searching. And it's very exciting when you go for a dive and you're kind of scanning and looking at the little stuff. And it makes you slow down and appreciate the small stuff when, you're always out there looking for the instant satisfaction.
Tell me a little bit about ice diving, because I've never done that, and I'm assuming it's probably pretty normal in your area.
Yeah, so one thing about Nova Scotia on the Atlantic is our weather is just wild. We have the most unpredictable wild winters, but we do have an ice diving season, which is great. We'll go ice diving in a quarry or a lake. There's a quarry not too far from us, and the water is totally turquoise, so it's just beautiful. So we started ice diving there a couple years ago, and it's a really cool experience to jump in, and you're under the ice, you're watching your bubbles dance on the ceiling, and just all these designs through the ice. It is kind of funny because we'll do our ice diving in freshwater, and the freshwater is actually warmer than the ocean. So sometimes our ice dives in the winter are warmer dives.
Okay.
Yeah, because the freshwater freezes at like 0, whereas the ocean can be -2. So sometimes we go for ice dives. We're like, oh, it's so nice and warm.
No, that's crazy. Yeah, it's something that... So like I was saying a little bit earlier, I definitely am. I do really, really enjoy the warm water. Kind of like you were saying, like I don't mind hopping in a wetsuit. I almost prefer it sometimes. The dry suit is definitely slowly grown on me over the years, but it's some cold water diving. So I feel like I'm almost embarrassed to say this. So like my cold water diving would be like Texas cold. So it's
Texas cold.
Yeah, it's not cold at all, right? Like,
so what's Texas cold? I don't even know what Texas cold is.
Okay. It's almost like an oxymoron, or not an oxymoron. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So Texas cold, I'm going to speak in Fahrenheit now. I'm, like I said, I'm slowly transitioning. but the coldest water I've ever dove is about 48, right around 50 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's like pretty low in the thermocline during the winter. Well, I mean, there's not really a thermocline, but it was pretty deep. And I remember looking and it was 48 degrees. And I'm like, man, this is freezing. Obviously, I was in a dry suit. But that to me was pretty cold. So I know when you get up, like probably your area or the Pacific Northwest is another area that I've really wanted to go to. I know in Fahrenheit, the temperatures are dropping probably to like the 30s.
Yeah, you're like 30. What would that be? 32 is about freezing.
Yeah,
Is it?
32
Yeah.
is freezing. So, and so that's something that I've wanted to try at some point, and I think I'm slowly prepping up to that, just to do it. But I definitely and the Northeast is so. Like I was saying, I grew up in New Hampshire. I never did any diving there, and there's some places in the Northeast that I really, really want to go to, and I never even thought about Nova Scotia or anything like that. Like, so I'm really excited to maybe make it up there one day. But that's why I was really excited to have you on the podcast, just to kind of hear more about what's going on. 'Cause to be honest, I don't think I've had anybody from the Northeast on the show yet. So you're the first one.
Am I the only diver? No, I'm kidding. But
And
no,
then oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's like a huge scuba scene in Nova Scotia, which I think shocks a lot of people when we talk about it. So we have a huge community of local divers here who go out. I mean, one of our dive clubs, Seawolves, which is our kind of club through the shop, we've got over 1,000 members in that club who come out over the year to come diving. We have the Sea Foxes, which is our all ladies club. We've got 400 members. So there's just tons and tons of local divers. And when people come here, that's typically what they're shocked at. They'll come out to one of our club dives and be like, what the hell? I did not expect to see like 40 divers show up on a Wednesday to jump in St. Margaret's Bay. But it's true. And I think a lot of us, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, do I wish the water here was, 30 degrees? Sure, of course. I mean, I don't want to freeze, but I love diving and I'm going to take what I can get and I'm going to dress for it. And I would rather dive in cold water and make it a good experience than not dive at all. And I think that's what a lot of the divers here, that's how we see it, is it's accessible, it's here for us, so we might as well explore. Do we wish it was a hot tub? Sure. But we get what we get.
Yeah. So is it mostly shore diving or are you going out on a boat?
So we've got both. I mean, one of the really nice things about Nova Scotia is we have awesome shore diving. We've got great big walls you can drop off right from shore. We've got nice kind of rocky beach sites. So the shore diving here is phenomenal. But we also are known as the graveyard of shipwrecks for Canada. So we've got tons and tons of wrecks here. So typically we take boats to go out to the wrecks because they are a little bit further offshore, but boat diving, shore diving, we've got it all.
Awesome. How deep are the wrecks? Are they pretty accessible?
It depends. We have lots that are within recreational limits, but we do have a lot that would be considered like tech wrecks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's super exciting. I definitely I haven't been back to the Northeast. Shit. I think the last time was like 2006 or something like that was the last
Oh
time I was in New
man.
Hampshire. Yeah.
You are due.
I know. It was like a quick trip in. I was helping my brother-in-law move, so I literally flew in at night, and then we left the next morning, and that was like my final goodbye to New Hampshire. And I keep telling myself I'm going to go back, but it's just, yeah, it's been a long time, so I definitely am overdue, especially for a dive trip. I think it would be a lot of
Totally.
fun. Well, tell me more about Torpedo Rays. Tell me about the shop. What do you guys have going on there? What's obviously your dive clubs, dive trips. Just tell me all
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, so we're kind of a full service dive shop here in Nova Scotia. My parents opened up in 97. So we've been going strong for over a quarter of a century now. Uh, but we do training. We're full retail dive shop. We do servicing. We do group trips. We have clubs. We do big events, all this kind of stuff. So we got a lot on the go here. We've got a pretty big teaching staff now. We've got about 50 teaching members on our staff.
Wow.
We're teaching lots. We got tons on the go. We host something every year called the Treasure Hunt, which is the biggest dive event in Canada. And we raise money. It's all for charity. So we try to represent Canadian diving and cold water diving pretty hard around here.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so awesome. So is like after it took a few times for your dad to finally get you in the water, was he finally like, I told you so? Like I knew you were gonna love this.
I think he's shocked because now I like live and breathe diving. My family jokes that diving has become my entire personality. And I think that he did not expect that from me whatsoever. And my mom jokes too because of like we're three girls in my family, so I have two sisters, and my other two sisters were always like fish growing up, and I was always a bit more scared of the ocean. And she's like, I don't know how you became the diver and how you're the one who has pursued all of this. So I think maybe I've thrown a curveball to my family, but I do think that they're very proud and very happy.
Oh, that's awesome. And your sisters don't dive at all? Like they never got their certifications?
Yeah, so my older sister isn't certified at all. She's super into museums. So she actually lives
Oh.
on the West Coast in British Columbia and works in museums. And my younger sister is certified and she's done some diving. She actually came on our last trip to Honduras with me and got some dives out there, which is great. But she would be advanced open water.
Okay, okay. And then that was actually going to be my next question because you said you run trips. So the trip to Honduras, was that a shop trip?
It was, yeah. So we started kind of trying to run these group trips in 2021. So right after the pandemic. Our first one, we headed over to Bahamas. We did Blackbeards. We brought, I think, 22 people on that trip. Then we headed to Cozumel and we dove with Dressel divers there, which was awesome. I love Cozumel diving. Drift diving stole my heart. And we had about 28 of us down in Cozumel.
Awesome.
Then last year in May, we headed to the Red Sea. And we were the first people ever on the new Scuba Scene liveaboard. So we got
Oh.
to break in the boat with a bunch of maritimers, which was fun. And that was 28 people. And then, yeah, we were just down in Honduras doing some diving in Roatan. And I think we had 24 of us on that one. And then we're headed back to Egypt in May with another group.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, no, so I've been to Cozumel a couple of times, and I just being from Texas, it's a super short trip, and no, I really, really love the diving down there. To
Oh,
be
it's
honest,
awesome.
I was blown away by just how clean everything was in the water because diving out here it's the diving out here is absolutely phenomenal. Like first time I stepped foot in Indonesia, it just captured my heart. Now Malaysia, it just my heart keeps getting bigger and bigger. But so I went to Cozumel and I was just absolutely blown. I found one piece of trash the whole time I was in the water, which was
Oh,
just mind
so
blowing for
nice.
me. And it wasn't even a piece of trash. It was like a microfiber towel that I actually scooped up and I keep it in my bag now. Like, I've had it for like a few years, and I'm like,
That's
man,
treasure, not
yeah,
trash.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. Any any trips to like the cenotes, the caverns, or anything while you were down in Cozumel?
Yeah, we did a day in the cenotes. We did chicken ha.
Oh, okay.
And man, now I just want to do a full week of cenote diving sometime. That was my first time in a cenote. And I was like, this is freaking awesome. I loved it. And it was funny. In a way, it reminds me, I think just in like the overhead environment, it reminded me of ice diving a little bit. So
Ah,
I
okay,
felt
okay.
like very comfortable because I'm used to the overhead environments with the ice diving, and just like the clear turquoise water. I mean, the ice diving water is not as clear as cenotes, so don't be fooled. But it did. It had this like I just felt right into it, and much warmer than ice diving. So yeah, I need to get some more cenote diving in.
Yeah, no, it oddly enough, I remember before going down there, I was like, man, I could never see getting into that sort of diving. Like, I just love reefs. I love the open ocean. And as soon as I got in there, I was like, okay, I see the appeal. This is pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
that's how I felt too. I was just taken by it. I loved it.
So out of the places that you've been, would you still prefer the cold water over the warm water, or what has kind of captured your heart the most?
Am I allowed to say no? Yeah. So, I mean, I love cold water diving. Don't get me wrong. I'll never stop diving in the cold. But I will say the Red Sea was the best diving I've ever done. The
Okay.
reefs there were just phenomenal. So much life. I was on a dive. I looked over and there's 16 dolphins swimming like within an arm's reach of me. It was just mind blowing. So I mean, I'm not going to tell you that cold water diving is better than warm water diving. I love them both. They both have kind of their perks and their charm. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to throw in the towel on warm water diving. But I also won't tell you to throw in the towel on cold water diving. I think we're just going to dive wherever we're at and we're going to enjoy it.
So my next question, I guess I'm curious because so when I first so the first dive that I ever did was a Discover scuba dive. I was, in a tropical environment where diving it was in Thailand, and when I went back home to Texas, I actually didn't know that there was any diving in Texas. I was literally at the having some happy hour drinks after work one day, just talking to a random stranger, and they're like, there's diving here in Texas, right? Do you get that in Nova Scotia? Like, do people don't realize that there's diving there, and then it
All
just
the time.
so how do people come across it? Like, how's the I don't want to say marketing, that's the wrong word, but like do people just randomly pass the shop and like curious walk in like what's going on here? Like, how do people find out about it in your area?
Yeah. So I would say that like people just driving by where our dive shop's located, we're kind of in a business park, so we're about 40 minutes to the ocean. But that is one of the benefit. We're on like a very high traffic street, so all these people drive by, and then people will come in to pick something up, and they'll be like, "Wait, you guys dive here? I just thought you were like a place that sells scuba gear. I didn't realize you're actually diving here." Or we'll be at a dive site, and someone will swing by and they'll be like, "Wait, are you guys going diving? What, you dive here? I thought you could only do that in Mexico." So we definitely have a lot of that. One huge thing has been social media. I think
Ah,
being
okay.
able to like post photos, share videos, seeing what you're doing, all these people have realized like, wait, I can dive in Nova Scotia and it's enjoyable. It's not just like the big dark abyss. There's actually things to see, because we've had tons of people who learned south and exclusively dive on vacation, and now they've started diving locally because they've realized, oh, this is something I can totally do, and cold water diving is not that bad.
It is exciting to see that because I know, like in Texas, it was kind of the same thing. Like people, I mean, for me, I didn't know that there was diving, but people will stroll in and be like, "Oh, I just need to get this for my trip going somewhere. Oh, I can do my certification here." And sometimes we would get
Exactly.
the referrals where they might want to do stuff here, especially in the wintertime. They could do all the pool stuff and then go off to Cozumel and do the open water stuff. But it's all I'm just kind of always curious to see how people are hearing about it in areas that are not so known for diving. But just because I don't know that there's diving there doesn't mean that there other people don't know, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, but I mean, I would say you're right. I think a lot of people don't, they think of scuba diving, they don't picture Nova Scotia, and that's including locals. I don't always think people think of diving in Nova Scotia. We don't have a ton of dive shops here. We're kind of the big one, and then there's a couple of small ones kind of scattered around the province. So it's not like it's pushed in your face. When I was in Roatan, you walk down the street and every second door is a dive shop. So you're just kind of forced to think about diving.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you may have to seek it out a little bit more. So I would say you're totally right in thinking that people don't initially think of diving in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, once again, I was like, man, I'm really curious to know more about it. And that's what's kind of cool about diving in general. Once you are introduced to this world and then you immerse yourself in it, you start seeing that, wow, there's actually diving in so many different places.
Yeah.
And you just really have to see it. Not even see it, you just have to hear about it. You're like, oh, yeah, there's diving up there. Because, yeah, there's a spot in Vermont that I had no idea that there was diving over there. There's a lake that has a lot of old wrecks. I mean, obviously there's the Great Lakes that's very known, but it's called Lake Champlain in Vermont, and it's like a place that I've wanted to go to for a while since I heard about it, just because there's a lot of preserved wrecks being freshwater, things like that. So yeah, no, I'm super excited to eventually make it up there. Like you said, I'm overdue, so I definitely need to make it there.
Totally. And I think too, it's taken the chance on dives like that. I mean, you think Nova Scotia or lake diving, any cold water diving, and you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. There's no clownfish on that reef. Like you have your thing you want to see. But I mean, don't sleep on it because it's great diving. I mean, some of the wrecks that we have here are mind blowing. Some of them are the best wrecks I've dove. And it's just, to me, it's worth it to dive. And we have so many tourists who come here and they go for a dive and they're like, I'm so happy I went because that's not what I was expecting. So it's different diving. And to me, when I dive in the cold water versus the warm water, it almost feels like an entirely different sport. Like there's something about having your dry suit on, you got all the extra gear, you got your hood on. It's darker, colder, and it takes a lot of focus, and it feels a little bit different, but in a way it's a great challenge and it feels really good. Whereas I dive down south and I'm like, I feel like I'm in a pool, like I can do anything, I'm wearing a wetsuit and I'm doing backflips, like this is amazing. Whereas at home in my dry suit I can't really do that. But I love both of them.
No, that's awesome. No, that's super awesome. So obviously the pandemic happened. It affected a lot of different people a lot of different ways, but y'all took that opportunity and created a podcast. So do you want to tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about the podcast?
Yeah, so our podcast was Dive In the Podcast. We did over 100 episodes. We had it running for a couple of years, and we had a whole lot of fun. It was myself and three of the other instructors at the shop. Every week, we'd bring someone on and have a chat, an interview. In a way, it was amazing because we created kind of this like global, and I'm sure you feel this way too. You have friends all over the world. It's like such a global community. And then, every year when I go to DEMA and this kind of stuff, it's like, hey, we talked on the podcast. I've never actually met you, but I feel like I know you because now we're friends on Facebook. And so I loved the podcast in that sense. I just felt like I made so many friends and talked to such cool people. So yeah, the podcast was a lot of fun. Like I was telling you earlier, life got real. Things went back to normal, which was great. But we just ran out of time, and which is kind of why it trickled off. We talk all the time about maybe doing like a reunion episode because we never really closed it off. Like it kind of, we left you guys hanging a little. And yeah, we talk about coming in, doing a reunion closeout episode just to kind of call it a day. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. But one thing that I haven't told you yet is that our podcast ended. But another thing that we've started doing is we have a TV show here in Canada.
Oh.
So myself and my friends, the Nudie Girls, we have a show called Jump In. And it's all about women in diving and female empowerment, women in cold water diving, and that plays right across Canada.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you tell me
Yeah.
more about what's like, who's involved, what's going on there?
Yeah. So the show is called Jump In. So it's myself, my friend Julia, Jen, Alana, and Sarah, and kind of all the adventures we get up to. So things around here, other parts of Canada, and when we travel, we film episodes. We were approached by a producer because he saw us diving. So Sarah and Alana were doing a cold water dive. He was actually doing interviews for another show that he produces called Ocean Playground. And he like stopped his interviews and ran over to them and was like, "What are you guys doing right now?" And they're like, "We're diving." And it was like February or something. And he was like, "I got to make a TV show about this." So anyways, here we are. we're filming season 4 right now. So season 1 is out. Season 2 comes out in a couple of months, and we're renewed for about 10 seasons right now, which is awesome.
That
So
is.
we have a lot of fun with that.
Oh, that's awesome. And where can you see this? It's just Canada based, or can
So, yeah, right now it's playing across Canada on local networks. What I've kind of heard is once 3 seasons are out, that's when streaming services start to buy it. So they want to buy
Oh,
bundles. So hopefully by like next year, we should have it on some streaming services.
awesome. Awesome. What's a typical length episode?
So they're half-hour episodes with commercial breaks. So they're all about 24 minutes.
Okay, okay, that is awesome. That is really cool. So tell me, give me like a storyline of one episode, like your favorite episode so
Yes.
far.
Oh man, my favorite episode. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, one thing I really like about this show, our producer, about 10 years ago, he did another show and he jokes that female divers are just so much funnier than the men. He was filming a show all about like commercial dudes, cold water diving, and he's like, everything was so serious. It was like, but he's got a leak in his dry suit. He has 5 minutes before he's hypothermic. He needs his dive knife to cut his buddy out of his suit. They almost got eaten by a shark. Like everything is just like 10 times intense. And he's like, I film you guys and you're just laughing and joking around the whole time and like pulling pranks on each other and all this. So we're a bit of a goofier crowd. I don't know if you get that from maybe this interview, but I don't think we take ourselves too seriously. But I would say a typical episode. It's kind of things that we're doing. So one in season 2 that I really liked, we have an episode all about Women's Dive Day. So this past year for Women's Dive Day, we did a big group dive. We had about 70 divers out. And then that night we had a big gala and we had awards, we had a scholarship, all this, and of course a big social and party. So kind of that is an episode. It's a bit of like a docu-series reality show just about our lives and what we get up to. So it's a lot of fun.
So, is there any way for me to watch it out here, or do I have to like hack into some Canadian TV network to be able to like? Is it YouTube, anything like that, or is it
I
gonna?
wish I wish it was on YouTube. I have a friends and family link I can send you, but I can't post it publicly.
Okay. Yeah, no, that would be awesome. No, I would love to see that. Just because I was thinking the other day, I was like, man, there are a few YouTube channels, a few I can, to be honest, I can only really think of one or two where it's an actual like TV show based on scuba diving.
Yeah.
Usually it's like an add-on, like, oh, this is what the show is about, and then there might be some scuba diving in it, but like an actual scuba diving show would be absolutely amazing. So no, yes, I would definitely be interested and like to see more.
Awesome.
So the diving community up there, is it pretty easy to incorporate people into the community, or is that a little bit of a challenge, or is it just super welcoming? Like, tell me about like creating the community that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a very welcoming community. I think as Maritimers, it's like bred into us to just be like, hey, friend, come on out. I'll take care of you. Like, it's just kind of what we do. Take people under our wing and make sure they're having a good time. We're just a province of hostess. So we're happy to have people. The community here is awesome. we've got everything from teenagers coming out to club dives to seniors coming out. So we really do just have a huge like variety in age. We've got tons of women coming out. So it's very inclusive, very welcoming, which is really, really nice to see. But we just have a whole lot of fun. I mean, it's easy to get in. A lot of the shore dives we do for club dives are, 40 feet max depth. So nothing we're doing is overly challenging, which is great because people like me can enjoy it just as much as the person who finished their open water last weekend. And we're just happy to help one another. And we joke that a 45-minute dive takes us 7 hours because nobody can stop talking because we're so social. So after dive, drinks are very common, some sociables, hanging out. Sometimes it takes us 3 hours to get in the water because we just can't stop laughing and having a good time. So it is a very, very social community. But I just love it wholeheartedly. It is the best. And a lot of people, when they come to Nova Scotia, they're like, I have never seen a community like this. But East Coasters, we're just a riot. I think we combine it naturally.
That is so funny because, so like I said, saying I grew up in the East Coast, and I definitely feel that there's like a different humor up in that part of the world, and sometimes it's like people either get it or they don't, and yeah, it's I do miss that sort of humor. And it's funny, I was joking, me and my girlfriend, we moved out to Malaysia, and we'll joke around because it's like sometimes people don't get our sense of humor because just the language barrier, and like I feel like I used to be kind of a joking around sarcastic individual, not in a bad way, just in a very joking way, but like I can't do any sarcasm out here because people just they don't, the tones are different, which is
they don't
the same.
It.
No, so like one amazing thing though is I have, all of my old jokes are like new jokes, like jokes that I can't really, use back home because I've said them 100,000 times, but here it's like a brand new joke and I'm like, yes, this is fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's new material. Yeah. You might as well use it. I know all us East Coasters, we're just like sarcastic assholes all the time, but that's what makes us so funny.
No, it's so true. It's so true. That is so funny. And I feel like since I've moved away from the East Coast, I've had to like tone it down more and more depending on where I'm going. Cause it's like, I might come off a little brash right now, but back home, I'm like the least sarcastic one. But, and oddly enough, I was trying to remember that the other day. I'm like, because I used to consider New Hampshire home for the longest time, and then I finally like moved away. Where I'm like now it's just a place I grew up because I can't really call it home anymore. But definitely have to go. Have you done any like inland diving in the United States in the Northeast? Is there much freshwater diving, or even in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, I've never dove in the US. So I actually have no experience diving in the US. I've done like some inland Canada diving. So I've done like Tobermory in Ontario, which was amazing. I've done some lakes in Nova Scotia, but honestly, diving in Canada, other than Ontario and Nova Scotia, I am not well traveled. My fiance is from Nova Scotia, but lived in BC for 5 years. So that's really where he fell in love with diving. So he knows a lot about West Coast diving. However, I've never made it out there, but he's hoping to drag me out there. The funny thing with Canada, our flights inside our country are so expensive. It's like way cheaper for us to go to Cozumel for 2 weeks than it is to like fly over to BC for
really
a week. Yeah.
Oh,
it's like half the price to go to Mexico than it is to travel within our own country.
Oh man, that's I didn't know. Wow. Growing up in New Hampshire, we had a lot of friends. I mean, just high school kids. A lot of people would go up to Montreal. Drinking age was 18, 21 in the States. So a lot of, my friends in high school would go up there. I never actually made it up there. And actually the only place that I've ever been in Canada was Vancouver, which really had a lot of fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I think I was 19 at the time, so I was able to drink up there. So I was like, this is awesome.
So funny. Even here, like in Nova Scotia, our drinking age is 19, and
Oh.
everyone at 18 drives to Quebec because they want to drink a year sooner.
So I'm actually just kind of curious, and forgive my ignorance. So I'm hearing you'll say either you'll say feet, but then you refer to Celsius. Is it a
Oh, yeah.
mixture, or like so you use Celsius for temperature and then imperial for measurements, or how does that work out?
Yeah, man, Canada doesn't know what we're doing. We just use it all. Like, so I typically do air temperature in Celsius. Like, air temperature in Fahrenheit makes no sense to me. Yet, I'll often do water temperature in Fahrenheit.
Oh,
Make that
okay.
one make sense. I I use feet. Meters is like times three. But I should use meters because I'm Canadian. We do kilometers, so miles. Don't know miles. Um, what else? I don't know. Centimeters. We're
So
just all kinds of messed up.
so it's I'm almost in the same boat, because obviously just being from the United States, it's all my core, my basis is imperial, and then moving out here, everything is, yeah, it's kilometers, it's
Yeah.
meters, it's Celsius, but I'll still find myself like reverting, like, so I'm like, okay, 30 Celsius, that's about this Fahrenheit. Okay, so it's about this hot. And I kind of cheat. Meters I have down very easy. And to be honest, I don't ever want to go back to the imperial system. There's just so much. Meters is so simple. It's just ungodly simple. And but I'll kind of cheat sometimes, because I have the two computers, and one computer I'll keep in imperial, one computer I'll keep in metric. So I'm like, if I'm not too sure, I could just glance over at the other one. I'm like, okay,
That's the
we're good.
Canadian setup. You're doing it right. Yeah. It's because we're supposed to be like the UK. So we're supposed to use everything they use. But we've been so influenced by the US, we don't know where we're at. It's all confusing.
So, do you think you'll ever do any diving in the U.S.? Is there any places that attract your attention?
I would love to. I really want to dive in Florida. That
Okay.
attracts me. And my friend Olivia is there. So I would like to go and visit her and do some
Okay.
diving. I would really like to do the like megalodon tooth diving. I think that would
Oh,
be
okay.
very
Okay.
cool. I also want to go like West Coast, go out to California, do some kelp forest diving. Our old manager at this shop, Justin, who was one of the co-hosts on the podcast with me, he, from all places, is from Vegas. Born and
Oh.
raised in Vegas, and then moved to Nova Scotia, which is wild. But anyways, so he always talks about like diving in California and the kelp forest and all that. So it makes me want to go out there and experience it. I got to quit my job because I got a lot of places to go and travel to. I don't know how I'm going to get money, but we'll worry about that later.
Well, hopefully the TV show will pick up, and then they'll start
We'll pay for it.
they'll just start carting you all over the world for different travel trips or whatnot. That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be awesome.
You know what is extremely funny is the only place that I've ever been diving in the United States is Texas. So
It's Texas.
Is Texas.
I want to go to Texas, man.
It's good time down there. It is a lot of fun, and I do miss a lot of things about Texas. And oddly enough, I do miss the diving because, like I said, it's really crazy because I didn't know that there was diving there. But just, speaking about community, there is such a big and welcoming dive community in the Central Texas area. And it's so random, like the just people that will end up there that have done absolutely amazing things in diving, just like true pioneers. And for some reason, they end up in Central Texas. And it's just kind of crazy, the people that you'll talk to and meet, and you're just like, why are you in Central Texas?
Exactly.
But no, I really, really do miss the community. I made so many good friends and just connections there. And so I actually, so I'm headed back there next month. And it's going to be kind of a quick trip. I haven't been back there in like a year and a half. And so I'm just going back to see family and hang out with some friends. And I was telling my girlfriend today, I was like, I should just go there and rent some equipment, and it's going to be cold. I have a 7 mil wetsuit, but I'm like, it's going to be freezing, but I'm like, I should just go out there, rent some equipment, and just go jump in the water for a dive. It's not the best time of year to dive. Visibility usually gets pretty low this time of year, but I'm like, I should just do it and, just round up a couple buddies and be like, let's go do it.
I think you should too. I'm always going to tell you to go for a dive. I'll never tell you otherwise.
I need to put up a little video and just be like, diving, barbecue, and some friends and some beers. Let's go do it.
Man. If that doesn't scream Texas, I don't know what does. Actually, are you a Shearwater computer fan? I'm a Shearwater computer fan.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
So they've come out with the new Turn computers this month, right? So, and you know how there's the Turn and then the Turn X. So if you look on their website, it says for the Turn X, it says Turn TX. So we've all actually started calling it the Turn Texas around here. So we say there's the Turn and the Turn Texas. So that's a new thing.
I love it. That is awesome. No, definitely if you ever get a chance to go to Texas, take it up. Austin is a really cool place. It's an amazing place. I was kind of against moving there at first, but then loved it. Absolutely loved it. I still miss it. I miss family, friends, but the food, I love the food out here. Don't get me wrong. I think, in my opinion, Malaysia has some of the best food in the world, especially where I live. It's just a big melting pot of different cultures. So the food here is amazing, but I do miss some good Texas barbecue.
Oh, man. I can only imagine. Texas barbecue. It doesn't get better than that. It really doesn't.
So my last couple questions for you, and then I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your day. So someone that didn't really like getting into their open water, their cold water diving, that has transitioned into who you have become, what advice would you have for that person going into their open water certification in your area, or in just cold water in general?
So I would say, and I mean, I think that's part of when I teach people to dive. I think I relate to those students so well because I'm like, listen, I was in your boat too. I think there's nothing worse than having an instructor who was like, I did every skill perfect the first time and this came so naturally to me. What is wrong with you? Because I can just emphasize with them. I have so much empathy. I'm like, I was you. I was the one crying in the shallow end because I couldn't clear my mask. Like, I was you. I was terrified. So it's just don't give up. Just keep going. Just keep working at it, and eventually it's going to click and it's going to get easier. But just because it doesn't come easy to you doesn't mean that it won't eventually, because now all these skills, I can do it in my sleep. I'm teaching other instructors and dive masters how to perform these skills. So it will come to you eventually. Just don't give up because it doesn't come easy. And maybe it means you need to invest in some private one-on-one or something like that. But yeah, ultimately, just don't give up because I did it. And if I can do it, anyone can. Seriously.
I love it. That is absolutely amazing advice. And I really, really want to thank you for coming onto the podcast today. It was amazing to hear about your journey, to hear about your local diving, and you definitely have me sold. I will have to come visit at some point, and I look forward to when the TV show goes international and we could all enjoy it across the globe. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. This was a great way to start my Friday. Now I feel energized and ready to tackle the day right as you're going to bed. But I hope it was a good way to end your Friday. No, it was awesome. And I do hope you come and visit us in Nova Scotia and we'll take you out. We'll do some scallop diving. We'll eat some good food. We'll dive some wrecks. It'll be awesome.
a scuba podcast.